people, they feel like they can't get to the point where they want to because of certain limitation. And a lot of these, it's not just you think, okay, yeah, modeling, acting, yeah, we get it. Yeah, those are the obvious ways. But if you think of in business, I have a lot of businessmen, and everybody thinks that if you're in finance, that you have to look like Leonardo DiCaprio. I get a lot of Wall Street guys that if I sharpen up the jawline, sharpen up the cheekbone, add just with a liquid rhinoplasty, which is reshaping your nose just with a couple of injections, in 10 minutes, you can completely reshape the nose. We have a thing called male model makeover. If you can do that to a guy on Wall Street, suddenly he becomes that Leonardo DiCaprio. He has more confidence to sell his deals, to be better about what he does, to be better in the boardroom. But not just that. We can't help it. People want, when they work with somebody, when they work with a team leader, they want to work with some person that has that look that is more confident.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hi there, and welcome to another episode here on the Strong by Design podcast show. Your host today, Coach Chris Wilson. So happy you could join us today for another edition of our podcast show. As always, we just love doing this show. We thank you for coming back to listen again. And if you're a new listener, welcome aboard. We're always looking for new listenership and for new subject matter, new things to talk about. There's so much in the world of health and fitness and strength and faith and all the areas that we go into on the podcast. And this is another one of those conversations that we haven't really touched on in well over 200 episodes. So it's pretty cool that I get to speak today with a world-class plastic surgeon about a lot of things that I don't think people consider when they think of plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery. So super excited to have Dr. Douglas Steinbrech on the show today. Before I introduce our special guest, I would like to say, our podcast is not monetized. It's 100% a way for us to give back in what we do here at Critical Bench as a fitness and health publishing company, reaching people all over the world. We've been around for over 2 decades. And again, this is just one area of the business that we said, how can we give back? How can we have meaningful conversations and help people in a really cool way? And podcasting is where it's at. So what helps our show grow is getting ratings and reviews. So at the end of this podcast today, after you're done listening, if you could hit that 5 stars or leave us a very short review, it just takes a few seconds. We would greatly appreciate that because it really helps us. And it helps us move up in the rankings and show up and become more visible for other listeners. So thank you so much for doing that. So let's introduce our special guest today, Dr. Douglas Steinbrech. And we were talking before I hit record about our hair and about how we looked and all these wonderful things. And he was complimenting me. So if we could kind of get right back into the compliments.
So good. The hair looks great. It's just amazing. Lighting's perfect. Everything looks great.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, and that means a lot more from a man like yourself.
This is what I do. I know men's aesthetics, and you're beating the curve by a long shot. I'm 1%.
Well, thank you. I'm a 1%er.
Yeah, I gotta say. Yeah, I'd go there.
I love it. Now, I have to brag about you a little bit. Obviously, you're considered one of the nation's most sought-after experts for men's surgery. You're world class when it comes to cosmetic surgery and what you're doing. You're in Manhattan.
That's
Manhattan, where you're located.
Beverly Hills and Chicago.
Wow.
No,
Wow,
this
that's,
is
I guess,
no, Chris. We don't mess around. This is serious.
we don't mess around. I would say if there were 3 cities in this country I could name for
Yeah,
that would be most beneficial for this bit line of work, it would probably be
right.
those 3. Wow, that's fantastic. And so you and your partner have been in practice for how long together?
We've been in practice in New York for about 10, a little over 10 years, actually. Yeah, August 2010.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, terrific. Yeah, it's such an interesting. The more reading I was doing and just thinking about all the different ways this conversation could go, it kind of got me excited because it's a topic that we really haven't touched upon in many, hundreds of conversations on this podcast. So to have an expert like yourself, somebody who's at the top of the game when it comes, the Michael Jordan of plastic surgeries. So first of all, give us a little bit of your background, if you would, and really what spurred the interest in even getting into this line of work from when you were younger?
Well, I grew up in Iowa, like a really small town. We had about 800 people. Highest soul in Iowa is between Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. All the good people out there. And it was a really nice school, but not exactly like, high bar. They taught you that you want to do good things, maybe go to college, maybe not go to college, maybe work on the farm. I come from a real farming family. And I decided I wanted to go to school and go to college. And I really didn't think about being a doctor because I thought like doctors only came from the rich kids from Chicago and their dads were doctors or mothers were doctors. I didn't think it was really, this sounds really stupid, but it's good for the people out, your listeners. Don't think in a small box. Think about anything. And I'll tell you, honestly, I was from a small town and I really didn't think that a kid from a small town could go to college and could go to medical school. I just thought that was for kids from the big city. I really, really honestly believe that. So when I got to school, I got interested in medicine and I applied. And then when I was in medical school, I was kind of thinking what I want to do. I was thinking maybe cardiac surgery or I like cardiac surgery, but I really got interested in plastic surgery when I rotated on the service because it's so interesting. It was a combination of something that's artistic, something that you work with people, something where they see your results, but also something that's incredibly creative and different every day. When we went down to the cardiac suite to do cardiac surgery, they'd say, time to make the donuts, which was their way of saying, like, here we go, doing the same thing every day. And I was just not inspired. I was a little disappointed, honestly. But when I went into the plastic surgery rooms, they were doing something incredibly facelift in one room, breast reconstruction in another for cancer, traumatic accidents, burns in the next room. And it was it was fascinating. So I did my general surgery at NYU, made a big move to New York City, and then I stayed here for plastic reconstructive surgery. And then I got interested in the aesthetic side of it. I lived in New York. I mean, it is Manhattan. Where else are you going to see a lot of people that want to look good, except in Manhattan and also Beverly Hills. So I just got really interested in the aesthetic side because of his creativity, and I enjoyed the people. And once I got there, I never left.
Wow. That's fantastic. I could imagine that. And I don't think people give that much thought, right? We think of our doctors and our healthcare, the amazing people in healthcare. My wife actually is transitioning from animal medicine and human medicine. She's going to become a nurse by the end of this year. And it's such an amazing, thousands of amazing, hardworking, passionate people. But there's a lot of that work that is mundane and just grinding and day to day and not very different, or like you said, the creativity. And you don't want to be the time to make the donuts, Dunkin' Donuts guy. If anyone listening remembers, those commercials were great from the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Time to make the donuts.
They were awesome.
Right?
And that's what I love my day. That's how I transitioned into the men, is because I was starting out, I was doing aesthetic things, and I was doing women, and I was doing breast augmentations. I love women, love women. But then I was sort of doing the same thing all the other guys and women, surgeons in New York was. Tummy tuck, breast dog, tummy tuck, breast dog. And there wasn't as much variety. And then I started seeing men, and a lot of my guys, I always say my friends become my patients and my patients become my friends. But I had so many dudes, they were like, hey man, when are you going to get done? I want you to do my abs. So I started doing, sculpting out some abs, and they liked them. And so they say, hey, you do that? Can you do my pecs? Yeah, okay, I'll do it. And then they said, well, what about my biceps? And then it went out from there on forearms, calves, and we just started. Finally, my patient coordinator would say, hey, Dr. Steinbrech, you come on your desk. Do you do? And then he'd just say, forget it. I'll just book the case because I'm sure you'll figure it out. But I liked it because women's plastic surgery, particularly cosmetic plastic surgery, kind of had its heyday in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Like they've made some advances, but that was like the Wild Wild West, and when really things were new and exciting. Men's plastic surgery is like that now, so it's really sort of the golden era. We're doing so many new, innovative plastic surgeries. We wrote a plastic surgery textbook. So that's male aesthetic plastic surgery, just to show that like the guy's legit, that I'm really passionate about it.
I will be sure to share that in the description of the podcast.
Awesome. Yes. So we made like a real textbook for surgeons, because I want to educate surgeons to do it. It kills my anesthesiologist. He's like, why do you want to tell people that? Don't give away all your. I want everyone to know, because I think the more people that find out about it, the water raises all boats, and I think there's a growing demand for it. A lot of guys don't even realize that a lot of these procedures can be done, and I really think that we should teach it to the residents, because I never learned any of it. So I was really interested. And I think the men are great. People have always said that men are difficult patients, but it's really that the doctors are the difficult people, because the doctors don't want to admit they don't really operate on guys, and they don't really know kind of how to do it, and they're embarrassed to get a bad result, so they blame the patient and say the patient's crazy. No, they just need to get better about doing that, and that's what we're trying to do with our textbook and courses and things like that.
Without naming any names, and obviously you already hit on some of the specialty areas, or the prominent areas when it comes to men in particular that you kind of zero in on, like the pecs and the abs and stuff. Can you maybe share an experience that was a life-changing event, and I'm sure you have many of them, working with somebody who really was maybe very frustrated, or with where they were at, and maybe it was something from a deformity that they've lived with their whole lives, or something that you were able to, with your artistry and your experience, were able to really make a big change for them that was transformative.
I'll tell you exactly, and I do it almost like probably a couple times a month now, and we're busy. We're operating this week. We're operating 5 days a week. Next week we're operating 5 days a week. Then I see a couple of days I see patients in the afternoon, but we start at 6 a.m. every single morning. But what really excites me is a lot of guys are born with a thing called Poland's disease. And Chris, you may have heard it, where they're missing one of their pec muscles. And it has a variable expression of the gene to the phenotype, which is Dr. Weirdo speak. That means it could only be just a little bit, you're missing a little bit of the fibers of the pec, to complete loss of pec muscle and loss of the entire extremity. So it's really crazy. But most of these guys are like, they're guys that go to the gym. Some of them are bodybuilders, but some of them are guys that go to the gym, and they just cannot get any growth out of one side of their pec. So what they end up doing is they're very, very frustrated, and they either give up or they don't know what to do. And they don't realize that there's actually a cure for Poland syndrome. And so what we do is we bring them in, we either put in a pec implant for reconstructive and aesthetic purposes, or we do a little what I call bodybanking. That's where we borrow the fat from another area, a bad area, either your flanks or your belly, and then we isolate the cells for structure and volume, and we reintroduce those into the pec muscle. And I could do a couple rounds of of grafting body banking to the pec that is down, and we could get a pretty good match on our Alpha Male Plastic Surgery and maleplasticsurgery.com sites, where you have these guys, and it's not as rare as you would think. There are a lot of guys walking around with only one pec, and they're really bummed about it. They can't take the shirt off. When they go to the gym, they're embarrassed. In personal situations with their loved ones or dating, the shirt comes off and you get all these questions. Little kids come up to them on the beach and ask what's going on. So we can get them to a point where there's a really great match, and they've gone all their lives with this problem, and it's a problem that's fixable. They don't even realize it is. And now we have a lot of happy guys. And that I'm really happy, because that's an ongoing thing. One day, we don't see them a lot, but I'll see a couple of consults a month. But one day I saw 3 consults in Beverly Hills, all for Poland syndrome, and it's not as uncommon as you would think. So that's one example of how much I really, and this is what your people have to know. If you don't love your job, if you're not passionate about your job, you got to figure it out. You got to do something else. But I'm just happy to be able to say that I really, really love my job.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that, because we've brought that up I don't know how many times on this podcast that I personally have that same zest and passion and interest in my work and what I get to do, and in service to others, as you are, in a much different way, but still, like we're helping hundreds, if not thousands, of people by what we do, and that's life-giving, and that it's so fulfilling, right? And it's like I feel like you're living out your purpose, like I am mine. And there's so many people that don't have those same feelings in their day-to-day, and I feel for them, and I am constantly encouraging people to figure out what that might be and take some risk and try some things to find that, because it can change your whole outlook on
critical.
life.
I have another just incredibly fascinating story about changing somebody's life, and it's about a gentleman that I put in pec implants to him, gave him great chest. Then we did the Bodybanking. We took out all the fat that he had around his bellies, his flanks. We put it in his biceps. We put it in his upper chest. We put it in his shoulders as traps. And it's really beefy muscle. People think it's going to be buttery and lumpy and everything. It's not. It really is. It's like swole, like when you're on the bodybuilders on the off season. It looks great. And so I did this to him, and there were a couple of drains in, and the drains kept on falling out. Fell out once, and I put it back in. I secured it with the stitch, and it fell out again. And we finally found out what the situation was. The guy, and this is incredibly rare in medicine, but the guy revealed to us, and his significant other revealed to us, that the gentleman, true story, actually had multiple personalities, and he's totally normal, normal person ostensibly to us. They were afraid to tell me because they didn't want me not to do the surgery, so they didn't reveal it. And his psychiatrist confirmed it. And get this, I improved the guy so much that one of his other personalities was really upset about it and would come out in the middle of the night and sabotage and try and pull out the drain. And the other personality was successful. Just incredible. And his psychiatrist, I spoke with the psychiatrist. He confirmed all of it. And we worked through the whole thing, and everybody ended up being happy. But I mean, I've had a lot of patients that they broke up with really bad relationships because they didn't think they were ever good enough, and that other person was holding power over them. And we changed a few things, tweak a few things, and they're noticed by other people. I mean, that's just the way our society is. But there's a huge awakening that, well, wow, people do admire me and they do appreciate me. So I therefore no longer have to be in this horrible relationship. So in a good way, I've broken up a lot of really bad relationships. Yeah. And I've never had anything like the gentleman that had the multiple personality situation.
I'm glad to hear that you made all of his personalities okay
Yeah.
with the work
Yeah,
that you did.
it took a little work because he looks so good. Some of the other ones were a little bit jealous, but yeah, I think we got it all figured out in the end.
Wow, how interesting. Yeah, I'm sure over a period of years, and you've been at this for a while now, you're going to come in contact with lots of different personalities and some interesting backstories. And some things aren't disclosed ahead of time, like in that situation. Now, obviously, a bulk of the work that you get is purely aesthetics, right? It's going to be people that really just maybe they don't like the size of their nose. They've never liked it. They really want some rhinoplasty, or they've always had, from a younger age, droopy eyelids or something. Like, there's a lot of purely aesthetic, cosmetic, just looks. However, there's also a lot of actual health benefit to a lot of the surgeries that are performed. And I wanted to kind of tackle some of these because I think when people think of the work that you do, cosmetic surgery as a whole, plastic surgery it's just, just people with a lot of money that just want to spend money on themselves to try and look more perfect. But it goes a lot deeper than that, I think. And let's just kind of run down through like the one aspect, confidence boost. For somebody who's been dealing with a deformity, like you've talked about, like half of a pec, or a whole pec missing, or their whole life, and it's messed with them, their mental health, and how many lives you've transformed just from being able to fix a deformity.
That's a huge thing. I mean, people, what we talk about is aesthetic confidence, is people, they feel like they can't get to the point where they want to because of certain limitation. And a lot of these, it's not just you think, okay, yeah, modeling, acting, yeah, we get it. Yeah, those are the obvious ways. But if you think of in business, I have a lot of businessmen, and everybody thinks that if you're in finance, that you have to look like Leonardo DiCaprio. And people, this is really interesting. There's an effect, a psychological effect called the Kanye effect. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Chris. It's great. The Kanye effect is basically a fancy way of saying fake it till you make it. It's saying that people out there, if you are so confident about what you're doing, and it can be real or it cannot, but if you're so confident, you believe in it, you have such conviction in what you're doing, people want to work with the winning team. They want to pick the winning horse. And they know, and this is how Kanye got to start. You know how much Kanye is up to? $6.6 billion. Mostly on his apparel things. But he's up to $6.6 billion. And he started that a little bit, with all of his issues, his health issues, his mental issues, which he has talked about. He's been a genius because he feels so strongly, has such conviction about what he has. He surrounded himself with an amazing team. And the Kanye effect is you actually do build a great team. And if you keep after them, you end up winning the game because of that confidence. And I get a lot of Wall Street guys that if I sharpen up the jawline, sharpen up the cheekbone, add just with a liquid rhinoplasty, which is reshaping your nose just with a couple of injections, in 10 minutes, you can completely reshape the nose. We have a thing called male model makeover. If you can do that to a guy on Wall Street, suddenly he becomes that Leonardo DiCaprio. He has more confidence to sell his deals, to be better about what he does, to be better in the boardroom. But not just that. We can't help it. People want, when they work with somebody, when they work with a team leader, they want to work with some person that has that look that is more confident. And somebody with a square jaw, with a high cheekbone, maybe with a little bit of less fat underneath their in the jaws. Those guys are going to be the people that are going to get the business. I have so many trainers that come in and they're rock hard. They have an incredible body, but their face, their chin is recessed. Their jawline is lacking. They don't have that look of confidence, and the face doesn't match the body. So for them, the same thing. We do some simple injectables or maybe some implants to give them, to match up their facial features, give them that look like we see in all these superhero movies, which also influences my business, to match their body. And it's not that they need to look like that facially, they just need it to match the rest of their body. Because if they're a trainer, people expect that. So confidence has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. And no, I appreciate the insight there. And it makes perfect sense. And so many of us that have, if you're blessed enough, I guess, maybe, to have a full head of hair, or, and have the good jaw structure or high cheek, like these things people take for granted. We don't think twice about it. But what if you haven't had that your whole life? And that's something that's just always on your mind, and you see it in the mirror. It has an impact on you, especially if you're
walking around and they're really, really thin, but they kind of have a chunky face. So we have we take out the buccal fat, which is really easy. You only really have a lot of these fat in different positions, and I'm going to talk about that, is really only because Mother Nature still thinks we live in caves. So she puts all this extra fat around your belly because she thinks that, hey, once you turn 30, back then the caveman, once they turned 30, they were the grandparents, because the parents were 15, 16, 17 years old. So they were thin, nimble, ran out to get that deer or a bear and drag it back to the cave. But the grandparents were 32, 33. They stayed back to watch the children, right? Watch the babies. But when the kid comes back with that deer, the first one to eat is him, and then the caveman wife, because she has to breastfeed the kids. The last ones to be fed are grandma and grandpa, the 35-year-olds over in the cold corner of the cave, and so they leave a little bit of meat for them. So Mother Nature built in some of these reserves because she knew the grandparents, the 35-year-olds, needed to have a little extra fat because the junior was not going to share with them unless they really, unless he really had some extra. So all these are old built-on things. But I'm going to give you another thing back to health benefits. Is a lot of people, something very simple, guys that quit going to the gym. After we move around things, give them this body that backs them up to their early 20s. Because what we do is we take out all that fat in the middle, around the middle, and we put it upstairs, up to shoulders and the chest, and suddenly they have this V body, the cobra back. They get even more excited. They get back to the gym. So that just inherently is a habit changing way where they get excited. They thought their body was gone forever. They were heading for, I call it Uncle Charlie on the beach. God, Uncle Charlie used to look so good on that warship. In those old pictures. What happened? He's like got this big, lost the battle of the bulge, and these tiny little legs and these spindly little arms. It's because Uncle Charlie just lost his, Mother Nature pulled the levers on the testosterone and the estrogen, so that happened. But then he just gave up because he thought, what's the use? But what we do is we reset the body tissues. My whole idea with patients is what I want to give them is I want to reset the tissues so that for the rest of their life they can have the form, because the fat doesn't come back to those areas that we removed. I want to reset those tissues. Sometimes we pinch off a little skin. We do a thing called a torso tuck, where people have that muffin top and that skin's not going anywhere. So we just tuck the shirt into the pants. But the value, my value proposition for these men is Mother Nature is going to play games with you, but we're going to reset the tissues. So now your body tissues are reset, and now you can go for the rest of your life with this general form of a person, and you can see it by the before and afters on my website. Just look up torso tucks. You can see they have the body from a 45-year-old, 48-year-old down to a 23-year-old, and then they have that body for the rest of your life, because you don't, after you're 18 years old, you don't grow new fat cells. So once we move it, just like doing a hair transplant, you don't grow new hair follicles. Once we move those cells to new areas, you can, that's the new body you're going to have. And then the last thing that really changes your health is more visceral fat you have, the more belly fat you have, that's been associated with, guess what? Diabetes, increased mortality, increased morbidity, problems with joints, heart disease, and early death. So if we can keep more fat on the outside rather than going to more visceral fat, then studies have shown that you can increase your health and keep yourself away from diabetes and all these other heart disease, all these other problems. So with normal liposuction, people take out the fat and they just throw it away. But guess what happens, Chris? People have always said this. Your Aunt Susie always said, "Oh, don't get liposuction because it's going to come back somewhere else." It really does. And guess what? It comes back as more visceral fat. So Columbia University is really interested in this, and they know that the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, is really interested because they have a hypothesis. If you have less visceral fat, and I'm doing it right now, when I bank the fat in on the outside of the body, you have less visceral fat, and so you can keep all these diseases at bay. And that's why body banking is another interesting way to improve your health, because versus normal liposuction or just your normal body processes, you end up having less visceral fat all the way through your life.
Wow. That's very, very interesting, and I hadn't really given that any thought at all.
Plastic surgeons don't even give it that kind of thought. They just don't think these things through. They just say, they just tell you, they tell your Aunt Susie, "Don't worry, we'll suck it out and it'll be gone forever." No, it's not true. So many patients come back, and I say, "Did they bank it anywhere? Did they put it anywhere else?" And they say, "No, the doctor didn't do it." And I said, "For the guys, this pops out to the side of their chest. Their lower chest pops out. They start to get outer thigh fat because they only did their abs. All these, I call that catch fat because you catch it in a different area, and it's a scientific acronym. Catch, CATCH, stands for compensatory, adipotrophic, cellular hypertrophy. And what that means is it just means compensatorily, by compensation, other fat cells, unless you bank it somewhere, other fat cells will enlarge. And if you don't think that happens, or your doctor doesn't think that happens, then you're fooling yourselves.
Right. Wow. Yeah, because the body is pretty darn intelligent, isn't it? You start robbing from somewhere, it's going to say, "Oh, well, we need to
fortify in another area." But we fortify in good areas. So we want our boys spots, when they're in their 20s and their 30s, after we've moved everything around, we want you to be able, this is a great thing. This is the cheat. This is my PA. He's like really into fitness. We're all into fitness in my office. But my PA is like, "Oh, it's hard for me to get used to this because it's cheating. Because I work so hard to go to the gym and get these big shoulders. And here you have a guy that never went to the gym. And now he on the table, he transforms from having a slender waist, big shoulders, big traps, and a big chest." And I say, but it's not cheating because he'll be more likely to go back to the gym. But the only little cheat is now with your diet, you can't have ice cream after dinner. You can't have bread because it just makes your shoulders wider, lifts up your chest, and makes your traps pop. There is a little cheat.
Little cheat. I mean, I didn't realize I was going to be sold in this podcast to take a trip up to New York to see you.
You can go to Beverly Hills too. You can stay warm. You don't have to go.
Well, that's true, right? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And obviously, other benefits. I just want to hit on really quick. Like, somebody has issues with their nose, and you repair their nose, they breathe better.
Yeah, you
right?
move around the septum, and even insurance pays for that, so that's a nice added benefit.
Right.
But that can help your breathing, absolutely.
And if you're breathing better, you're sleeping better.
Absolutely, you're getting better sleep.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a huge thing. I actually know some people that have had nose work done, rhinoplasty, and yes, it's an appearance thing. They didn't like, they thought it was too big or whatever, but the fact that you can breathe really well through your primary breathing area, which is your nose, your mouth is a secondary way of taking in oxygen. If you're breathing better in a course of a 6-8 hour night of sleep, life is just better. You're more energized. Life is
another part of that is just with the liposuction we do. If we can get some of these people get their weight down or shift their weight around, they can breathe. You can breathe a lot better if you don't have all this abdominal, this visceral fat, and all this fat, subcutaneous fat down there. Because once you get that off, then your lungs can eat. It doesn't take as much work to push your visceral compartment out of the way to be able to breathe. So people with sleep apnea are less likely to have problems. They don't need the CPAP, and they can get better night's sleep, and they can have a more productive day the following day.
Wow. I mean, again, so cool. Vision, people who have, and I know a lot of older folks who have this, where they have that droopy eyelid, and it's not just a looks thing. Now they're impairing their vision. They're having trouble seeing the world.
For another case in point, exactly why improving your outer vision, your peripheral vision helps with driving, that insurance also can pay for some of these. Because they want you to be able to be safer when you're driving and just walking around the city streets.
Exactly right. So cool. And obviously we kind of hit on, not really much, but a lot of people think when cosmetic surgery in women and breasts, they think breast implants. However, I'd like to say, what about breast reduction surgery for people who are in pain or experiencing neck, back issues and stuff because they have maybe large breasts and they want to reduce the size?
Absolutely. I mean, the dirty little secret is I still operate on women. In fact, I operate on more women than I did before. But I'm known for men. I just tell the women, it drives all my colleagues crazy. I tell the women not to tell anyone, keep it a secret. Don't tell anyone that you did your surgery. But because what happens is it used to be the women that I'd operate on, and then the men would do the big reveal, and the men are like, wow, that looks great. Do you operate on men too? Now the whole thing's flip-flop because I operate on so many men that it takes this off, and the women say, wow, do you operate on women? And I say, yeah, I will. Don't spread. Don't ruin my reputation.
Don't spread it. Yeah.
Like stay on brand. But for women to bring down those double D, triple Ds, double Gs, if you can believe it, triple Gs, to bring those down, you can make a tremendous difference. And I remember earlier on in my career when I did do more women, I had this woman who was 70 years old, and I did a breast reduction. It was one of my first years in practice before I did men. But you know what the first thing she did? She said to me, holy Moses, why didn't I do this when I was 25 years old? Why did I go for 45 years?
Her whole life she lived like that.
And insurance pays for that too. Hey.
I mean, think about it. As a man, I cannot imagine having 2 10-pound-ish sacks on my chest forever.
I would just jump in the kitchen and get that kitchen knife.
I mean, I can't imagine it. Going out to go run and play with my children.
That's a lot of work.
Anything that I do, I got to think about how I'm going to strap these things in, because movement and activity is a pain in the butt or a pain in the chest.
And when I say these things about women that have larger breasts, I want to say I'm being completely respectful, and if they want to keep them, I completely understand that. I'm just speaking from my patients that have had situations where they wish that they would have made those moves. But I completely understand.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Well, no body shaming here.
No, of course, no. But just maybe it's something more manageable, where everyday movement activity is more comfortable, and you're not experiencing this demand on the rest of the body. That's a lot that your spine and stuff has to deal with every day.
We see it with some of the gynecomastia can be very painful. So if we can get,
gynecomastia.
I see a lot of gynecomastia in young kids where the estrogen is a little bit out of balance with the testosterone. We see it in a lot of the bodybuilders. They did All these guys, everybody did a little round in their 20s, just experimenting, maybe just touched it once, but they didn't have the right balance, so we dig it out. But really, about 85% of men have some variable form of gynecomastia. Most of it is just is really camouflage from all the fat that they're carrying around in there. But once I take out the fat, I do have to take out the nubs of the gyno to be able to, so they have a nice, clean, beautiful chest at the end of the day.
Wow. So interesting. And then even with people that are that you do some work on sometimes that maybe you're dealing with migraines or headaches and stuff, and they have Botox and other things done to help relieve some of that maybe chronic headache and migraine pain.
Botox can be used for so many things. I mean, actually, it's interesting. You may know this or you may not. Most people don't know that aesthetic Botox was an accident. Botox was meant for people that kind of had the case of the blinkies. And they found that they were using this very dangerous, they isolated, obviously, this very dangerous toxin. It is a toxin. And they were able to genetically modify it and produce it in massive quantities. So they first started using it in people that had a twitch to their eyes. And they found that the eye that was twitching, that there were fewer lines on the forehead around the eye or the crow's feet. I'm like, wait a second, I think we've got something here. And the Botox made by the company that made Botox, Allergan. They started in Ireland, and they were one little hut. It was like one little thing. And if you go on their website, you can actually see the expansion of Allergan, the company, into this one little trailer, and then it gets bigger. And they show over the years how it expands, like LAX airport. It just expands, and now it's as big as a large university campus. That's how big this behemoth is. Because it all started because that one day where they said, hey, wait a second, I think we have something else for this. But we do use Botox for sweating. I just did it to one of the guys from my office. We just put 75 because it does the same thing. It cuts off the connection at the motor end plate, and you fill up all those receptors. You block it with a fake receptor blocker, and that's called Botox. And then the nerve is screaming at the muscle, and the muscle is just laughing, ha ha, I can't hear you, I have my earplugs in. And it's the same thing with the sweat glands, exact same thing. Your body is, the motor nerve, or the sensory nerve, the motor nerve actually is screaming, saying, we need some sweat here, we're overheating. And the glands, the sweat glands underneath your arm are, ha ha ha, I have my earplugs in, I'm not listening to you. It's the same thing. So we can help with that. Botox is also used for people that have really tight voice box. It's interestingly for little boys that can't fill their diapers, if you know what I'm saying, because everything's too tight. They're born and they're too tight, and you actually, inject it into their behind so that the little babies can have just normal diaper. So it's used, and 1,000 other things. Anything where things are too tight or too overactive, hyperactive bladder, a lot of different things Botox is used. So it's not just to be looking pretty.
Right. Isn't that something? Well, I have my own personal, so I told you before we hit record that I had my own personal experience with Botox. I'm sure it's not really that exciting, but so a lot of guys get the big etched number 11, yes. I like to call it, between the eye. And if I do that, you can see mine pretty good.
There, man.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I had Botox put in this area, and then Juvederm, right?
Yeah, that's glabellar area. Yeah, glabella.
But that was done. Now it does wear off over time.
Yep.
Right. I had my procedure done probably at least 10, 12 years ago. It's been a very long time, and it was better for many years. And then just probably in the last few years, I've kind of noticed that like my 11 is, kind of coming back, and
because I think I furrow my brow a lot.
You're
I think
really
it's just because
ticked off.
I guess I'm a very angry man, so. But I probably do for like a little bit more work there in between the eyebrows.
I did the same thing, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I was just starting to see a little, every day I said it 10 times a day, the fine lines of today become the deep creases of tomorrow. And for all my men, I want a little line. I want it to look sexy. The crease looks good on you to have a little bit. I have a little bit on myself. Yeah. I don't want the men to look like women. Most of my men don't want to look like women. I want my guy to look like the guy on the front of the brawny, paper towels. Marlboro man, he looks a little sexy, but he doesn't look like an old grungy dude in an alley. You know what I'm saying? So we want just a little bit masculine. We don't want to lose everything. We don't want to be feminized. We don't want to look like a zombie. We don't want to look like a freak. But we do want to look sexy. So I did what you did, which is I was just starting to get it, and there's just one day you keep on doing that furrow thing, but then one day it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that line just goes, think. It just goes, I can't take it anymore. Boom. And it breaks. And then you see it. But then very quickly, it gets deeper. But you can back it up, because if you inject some filler there and do Botox, they do two different things. The filler pops it in. I call it my spackler. I use Restylane, or I use all the products. I love Allergan. But I use Restylane, I call Resty my spackler. Just like the cracks that you have in your kitchen wall, same kind of thing. You just inject this up, it pops it out, like popping out the dents in your car, and you just pop that sucker out. But then you use Botox, because Botox lightens up. Those are called corrugator muscles, like the corrugated cardboard or the metal. It's bent, wavy. Well, then guess what? It does. It makes your skin go corrugated. That's why they call it the muscle. Hey. These guys are pretty smart. Hey. So the Botox stops you from doing that. So if you do a little bit of filler, you do, Chris. I hate to say it, man. You're a nice guy. I'm nice guy, but I got to be honest. You need to do it. But if you just do it, just maintenance. Most people think like, this is what I hate about that stupid filler. There's that stupid Instagram filler. You got to have an Instagram filter. You have to have an Instagram for everything. One, makes you look like your Cro-Magnon man. The other one makes you look like the Neanderthal man. So now you got the one that makes you look like an old man, makes you look like a baby. So now you got the one that makes you look like you've had filler. And of course, it doesn't make you look like, Brad Pitt. No, because we like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise have never had any filler, right? No, it doesn't show you all the good things that filler does. All it doesn't I always say make you look like your Hollywood twin, higher cheekbones, stronger jawline, look like the twin that was the model, not the twin that was left behind. No, what it does is it makes you look like those ridiculous ladies that are like those real estate agent. I love real estate agents. I'm not going to say real estate. Those like an old lady that tries too hard, that goes to the dermatologist and just keeps pumping it in. Yes. Nothing against dermatologists. Yeah. But it does, so that filter makes you look crazy. Now, that's not what fillers are for. Fillers are just to pop things out, to give you structure, not a lot of crazy volume. Fillers aren't just to plump things up. No, they're there to sharpen things up. Because I know that, women may want curves, but men want curves and edges. So I go for strong definition, and fillers can help me do that. And it's all over my website. All over my male model makeovers on my website shows it all.
Yeah, talk a little bit more. So what are some of the best places for people to go who are interested in learning more about your profession, about you personally, what you do, your specialties and services? So, would it be Gotham Plastic Surgery?
The best place to see it is to go to maleplasticsurgery.com. Like, I realized this thing from New York, I realized this is just a tip of the iceberg. So 6 years ago, I took my website and put palm trees up, and we started going to Beverly Hills, and then we said, now we're going to go to Chicago. So the next two places are, here you come, Dallas-Fort Worth and Miami. We always were planning to go to Miami, but then COVID threw a wrench in it. Then we'll have five places up. But if you want to learn more, you can go to maleplasticsurgery.com. where you can learn about us in any one of those cities. Or you can go to our Instagram, Male Plastic Surgery, or my personal Instagram and see my happy family on Dr. Steinbrech. Or it's same thing to our Facebook, Male Plastic Surgery. And, we have really informative, people love our YouTube channel, which is my style. Just Google Male Plastic Surgery and you're going to find me.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure that I have a lot of those platforms and links in the description area. So anyone listening, if they want to just look below, scroll down, and you can click away and find Dr. Steinbrech. It's been really a joy and fun and enlightening, and I learned a lot myself, and I know our listeners did. Thank you so much for making the time to talk with us on Strong by Design.
Chris, thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of your podcast, and I really appreciated being able to do a little information. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us again on Strong by Design. Now's the time to hit that 5 stars. Share a quick review on any platform you're listening to. We greatly appreciate it because it really does help us. And be sure to share this episode with somebody in your family or a friend who would benefit or enjoy this conversation as much as I did today. Thank you so much, and we'll talk with you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.